Rodolfo Guzman Huerta was born in Tulancingo, Hidalgo in 1917. He began his professional wrestling career as Rudy Guzman in 1935. After having several ring names, he reappears as El Santo. His debut was on July 26, 1942 at the Arena Mexico. After a successful wrestling career, cinema opened the doors to fame and he starred 52 films. Next, we will introduce you a review of all his movies. Santo vs. Cerebro del Mal, 1958. This movie was the first of a bunch of movies he starred. He refused in 1952 the role as El Enmascarado de Plata, as he thought the movie wouldn't be successful, but 6 years later he changed his mind and traveled to Cuba to film it. This movie is about El Santo being kidnapped by 3 criminals that took him to an evil doctor who will try to perform experiments on him. Santo vs. Hombres Infernals, 1958. This movie was filmed at the same time as Cerebro del Mal, in Cuba, where the Mexican actor Joaquin Cordero was an undercover agent that played a Mexican criminal. El Santo needs to rescue the agent and his fiancée from a band of criminals. Santo vs. Los Zombies, 1961. In this movie, El Santo fights against an evil doctor who creates zombies. The movie starts with a scene on which El Santo is running around the ring with other wrestlers when a long fight breaks out between El Santo and a Black Shadow, which is supposedly for the medium-weight title. Ultimately, he wins the belt championship. Then there are 2 more fights. The last one is against zombies who are being controlled remotely by the villain. Santo vs. El Cerebro Diabolico, 1961. El Santo, in this movie, fights against one of the main villains in his movies, Dr. Suku. In this movie, El Santo saves a sheriff and needs to solve the murder of a rich old woman. This movie is divided into 3 episodes: El Santo vs. El Cerebro Diabolico, Pueblo Sin Ley y La Lucha Final. Santo vs. Rey del Crimen, 1961. This movie is the first of 3 El Santo movies that were lost years ago. It fills the breach between El Santo vs. Los Zombies and El Santo vs. Mujeres Vampiro. It should be noted that Rey del Crimen includes the history about the origin of El Santo. This movie also is divided in 3 episodes: Rey del Crimen, La Mafia y Muerte and El Fronten. Santo vs. En el Hotel Muerte, 1961. This movie is about a young lady who arrives to a hotel in some archaeological place where there have been women's murders and some guests have disappeared. All this until El Santo arrives to rescue everyone. Also, this movie is divided in 2 episodes: El Túnel Secreto y El Tesoro de la Muerte. Santo vs. Las Mujeres Vampiro, 1962. This is probably the most famous El Santo movie known worldwide. That's why the English version was available for broadcasting on TV for decades. The movie is about a priestess Tundra that wants to bring into life the Queen Zorina using Diana's blood, who is descendant of a woman who supposedly should have been the queen. Diana's father Orloff is a famous Egyptologist who asked El Santo for help, whose ancestor avoided Diana's ancestor who became a vampire. A group of women vampires send other enslaved wrestlers to fight against El Santo. Santo and El Museo de Cera, 1963. The plot is about a journalist that mysteriously disappeared while making a note at the Wax Museum. Suspecting that museum's director is involved, El Santo comes to rescue her. Santo vs. El Estrangulator, 1963. In a music hall theater, an assassin has murdered some artists. To discover the guilty one, El Santo's help is required. Santo vs. El Espectro del Estrangulator. When El Santo defeated El Estrangulator, one of his most strongest enemies, El Santo thought he wouldn't see him ever again. But thanks to Tor, he came back from the dead looking for revenge. Santo en Atacan las Brujas, 1964. Myra the Witch's Queen pretend to sacrifice El Santo in honor of Satan. His master, El Enmascarado, must destroy the sorceress and her disciples and help the heiress Ophelia, who has premonitory powers. This was one of the last movies filmed in black and white. This film was divided in 3 episodes: Atacan las Brujas, La Bruja Maldita, and El Aquilar Sangriento.
El enmascarado de plata. Está dedicado a proteger a los débiles y a los desamparados.
Santo en El Hacha Diabolica, 1964. Hacha Diabolica is a vivid image where we can find some input about Santo's legacy. Is the first Santo movie with an extended sequence that doesn't take place in contemporary Mexico and the first Santo movie where he has a girlfriend. It is also the first Santo movie where the plot is about El Enmascarado de Plata, instead of being called to solve a mystery or save someone into trouble. The plot has mystical and romantic elements atypical of a wrestling movie. The main menace is an axe with a black hood that appears magically and tries to behead El Santo, this being a particularly strong problem for El Santo. The movie suggests that Santo's silver mask has supernatural powers.
Hecho de un material indestructible.
Santo en Profanadores de Tumbas, 1965. This movie is divided in 3 episodes: Profanadores de Tumbas, Los Traficantes de la Muerte, and La Cura Asesina. In this movie, El Santo needs to stop a mad scientist that tries to bring into dead people back to life. Santo contra El Baron Bercola, 1966. This movie has one of the most brutal and shocking fights in any of the Santos movies. All the action develops in 2 different timelines, 1765 and 1965. At the beginning of this movie there are memories about Dracula. The main character of the movie comes out from his coffin on a dusty basement surrounded by rats and spiderwebs. In the other room lays the remains of her beloved Rebecca crossed by a stake. The Baron says time for revenge has come. Santo contra la invasión de los marcianos, 1966. The plot of this movie is about evil aliens coming from Mars to take control over the Earth. Lucky for us, El Enmascarado de Plata shows up to stop them and saves mankind. Santo contra los Villanos del Ring, 1966. Luz de Orient is an organization of swindlers that pretend to be spiritists. They cheat naive and powerful rich people. In this way entire inheritances have been donated for their organization by heirs' free will. Family ties and destiny lead Santo to face this dangerous organization. Santo en Operación 67, 1967. This is one of the most ingenious Santo adventures, a James Bond-style movie with El Santo and Jorge Rivero as secret agents. Like James Bond movies, this film has women in bikinis, action, tricks and an international plot. It's interesting to notice this is one of the few Santo movies where there is nudity, also one of the few films that we can watch uncensored. Mexican releases usually don't have nudity because this would exclude children from the audience. Nevertheless, at least there is a version of Operación 67 with a musical scene where Midori Nagashiro walks topless for a while. As nudity was forbidden in Mexico, that version was available only for foreigners. Santo en El Vampiro y el Sexo, 1968. El Enmascarado de Plata invented a time machine that provokes the mockery of a group of scientists reunited by Dr. Sepulveda, a wrestler's friend. Luisa, a doctor's daughter, offers herself for testing the efficiency of Santo's machine. He sends her to the end of the 19th century. Now Luisa is in danger as she arrives with Conde Alucard or Dracula. El Enmascarado de Plata needs to bring her back into the present. This story has elements from the novel of the Irish writer, Bram Stoker. Santo contra Capulina, 1968. The story is about Capulina working as a watchman. He is more into punching the time clock and going to sleep instead of watching out on a mail storage where packages without owners are left. While he is sleeping, a group of smugglers steals a package with ceramic. El Santo finds out they are part of a criminal band that traffics diamonds. While trying to catch these criminals, Capulina only obstructs the capture. Santo contra Blue Demon en la Atlantida, 1969. A Nazi scientist uses the lost city of Atlantis as his headquarters. He seeks to destroy humankind with an atomic bomb. The Nazi scientist wants the Three Reich to rule again. If his demands aren't fulfilled, he will go on with his nuclear threat. With no time to lose, Santo is the one who needs to find the nuclear bomb, dismantle it and finish once and for all the Nazi scientist's evil plan. El Santo y Blue Demon contra los Monstruos, 1969. The mad scientist Halder comes back from the dead to capture Blue Demon and creates a sinister double. Santo must face the scientist and his resurrected monsters. Nudity scenes were filmed to be released for exportation. Currently isn't known if that version still exists. Santo y Blue Demon en El Mundo de los Muertos. In the movie plot, Santo and Blue Demon fight against a scientist who resurrects body core and transplanting a live brain in them. Santo contra los Cazadores de Cabezas, 1969. A mad scientific Dr. Mattis is using human blood to bring dead people back to life. Santo needs to prevent the doctor from using his zombies to conquer the world. Santo, Frente a la Muerte, 1969. A group of smugglers led by Alicia steal a big emerald from a Colombian mine. The robbery was ordered by mysterious Gran Desconocido who has his father as a hostage. This movie is considered one of the lowest points for Santo. Santo, contra la Mafia del Vicio, 1970. Mexico City Chief's police officer rebukes some detectives unable to find who is sabotaging a chemical compound factory, so he needs Santo's help. Santo en La Venganza de la Momia, 1970. After a wrestling match in which Santo defeats an Italian's wrestling duo, they invite him to join an archaeological expedition because they want to explore some Aztec ruins. Once there, they find an Aztec tomb priest who is buried alive and carries a terrible curse. From that moment on, the mummy starts to kill one by one the expedition members. Santo contra Las Momias de Guanajuato, 1970. The story starts with a group of tourists going on a tour inside Guanajuato Mummies Museum where the guide Pinguino tells them a satanic story. From that moment the mummies come back to life and the wrestlers Santo, Blue Demon and Mil Mascaras are being called to fight them. Santo contra Los Jinetes del Terror, 1970. 6 sick people have escaped from San Lazaro Leprosarium. They arrived on horses to a small town where everyone is afraid to get infected from leprosy despite the brigades that try to find them. It is necessary Santos El Enmascarado de Plata help to find the terror riders and bring back peace. There is a version called Los Leprosos y el Sexo, filmed for exportation and nudity and distributed in U.S.A with this name. Santo en La Venganza de las Mujeres Vampiro, 1970. This is one of the best Santo movies, is well produced, good cast and solid direction led by Federico Curiel. Despite the title, it isn't a sequel of the famous movie Santo contra las Mujeres Vampiro. In this movie Santo fights against a vampire priestess and a mad scientific who wants to rule the world. Santo contra La Hija de Frankenstein, 1971. A doctor produces an elixir youth made by corpse blood and she wants to use also wrestler's blood, of course, and that blood would be from Santo.
Yo puedo contestar a esa pregunta.
Santo en Misión Suicida, 1971. In this movie Santo appears only in one fight scene. To compensate this, he is involved on 6 street fights, 5 of them are extensive action sequences. About the story, Santo allies with Agent Piscus to fight an organization that changes people's minds. Santo en Asesinos de Otros Mundos, 1971. The evil Malkosh controls a substance coming from the moon that kills and changes his victims. The National Security Officer O'Connor calls Santo to fight this villain. Santo y la Tigresa, El Aguila Real, 1971. More than 10 years later from her debut on the first full-length Mexican film Santo contra los Zombies, the actress Irma Serrano acts again with Enmascarado de Plata. After receiving some death threats, the rich landowner Irma Morales decides to call Santo for protection and to discover who is responsible. Once there, Santo starts to investigate and makes a list of suspects that includes some neighbor landowners that want Irma's property. Santo y Blue Demon contra Dracula y el Hombre Lobo, 1972. After being defeated by Mago Cristaldi, Dracula comes back looking for revenge. In this movie with the help of the werewolf and his followers, the victory is imminent. A descendant from Mago Cristaldi is warned about Dracula plans and he asks Santo and Blue Demon for help. Santo contra los Secuestradores, 1972. Interpol's Special Investigation Office sends Santo to Ecuador to find out the kidnapping of the forger Pedro Miller. The agent Elisa helps Santo to rescue him. The plot is almost non-existent and doesn't have any fantasy elements at all. Santo contra Magia Negra 1972. This is a Santo adventure film full of Haitian dances and tourist landscapes. Has only a few action scenes that are not very impressive. The arena fight sequence scenes were taken from the movie Santo and La Venganza de las Mujeres Vampiro. The plot is a mix of terror, magic and zombies with sci-fi was rolled in Haiti. Santo and Las Bestias del Terror, 1972. Santo and Blue Demon must defeat a mad scientific that has an army of women zombies. It is classified as a crime movie and was filmed in Miami. Santo contra Los Lobos, 1972. Luba is a she-wolf who comes back from the dead to destroy humankind. Caesar Harker is a man who fights against werewolves, asks Santo for help. As Santo is a silver symbol, he is the only one who can destroy the wolves. Santo en Anonimo Mortal, 1972. El Enmascarado de Plata investigates some murders related with a payroll. Except from 2 fight scenes in the arena, there is not much action in Anonimo Mortal. Santo y Blue Demon contra Dr. Frankenstein, 1973. The 2 superheroes fight against Dr. Irving Frankenstein, who is a 113-years-old mad scientific who practices brain transplants with hope to resuscitate his wife, whose corpse is preserved on a showcase. In order to get more people to experiment on Frankenstein, orders to his golem zombie controlled by a device implanted in his skull to kidnap innocent people. Santo contra Dr. Muerte, 1973. Some art thieves break into a museum, provoking some damages on a Velázquez painting, Los Borrachos. Dr. Man is in charge of the painting restoration, but he is member of the gang and Man will substitute the original painting for a copy. Also, he has some women kidnapped in his castle. The fights and action sequences in Dr. Muerte are really good with lots of punches, kicks, body fights, broken furniture and athletic fallings. Santo en El Misterio de la Perla Negra, 1974. One man trying to escape from police pushes his truck from a cliff. Police think he has died, but he is hidden and has delivered the diamonds. The thieves tied up a metal box with the diamonds to a ship hull that sets sail from Spain to Mexico. Santo needs to solve this case. Santo y Mantequilla Napoles en La Venganza de la Llorona. Professor Esteban Lira is a famous historian who has studied Llorona legend. Long time ago she was Eugenia Esparza, who was cheated by a Spanish noble. She kills their 2 children and hides 10,000 gold coins. To recover the treasure and donate it to children in need, Professor Lira asks Santo for help along with his friend Mantequilla Napoles. Llorona won't rest in peace until her honor is restored, killing all the descendants of the man that cheated on her. Santo en Oro Negro, 1975. From a secret base hidden in a Puerto Rican prison, orders via radio has been sent to New York to start the operation named Oro Negro. In New York, a man breaks into the conference room of a very important company led by Vanessa Del Valle. The intruder says he represents a terrorist organization led by Acuario that will sabotage their petroleum plant unless the company pays an enormous ransom. 2 members of the board of directors go to Mexico and ask Santo for help, and they promise to pay him royalties for each barrel of crude produced if he helps them. Santo, Blue Demon y Mil Mascaras, Misterio en Las Bermudas, 1975. While Santo, Blue Demon and Mil Mascara are wrestling on Bermudas. Their services are required by the King of Iran to protect his daughter because there is a plot to kill her. Mysterious fadings, seductive hidden agendas, international spies, and exciting fighting scenes. This movie can be considered as the end of the wrestling genre movies. Although Santo keeps rolling few more movies. By 1977, the heroes' wrestling movies as a part of the Mexican filmography were old-fashioned. In fact, the movie seems to be done to end with the genre, as in the last scene the 3 heroes disappeared from the earth. Santo en La Frontera del Terror, 1979. An evil doctor operates and kills Mexican workers on a Texas ranch. He removes their eyes and other organs to traffic them. Santo en El Puño de la Muerte, 1982. Santo en La Furia de los Karatecas. 1982. From September 17, 1981. This was the two last Santo movies. Furia is a sequel from Puño. Both movies are basically about a fight between two sisters to control a crystal stone with powers. Both sisters were played by Grace Renat, the good one with blonde hair and the bad one with black hair. Santo works along with the good sister and Tinieblas works with the bad sister. And well, we have reached the end of this video. Did you know El Santo or some Mexican wrestling? What's your favorite movie? Do not forget to subscribe to our channel in English. Until next time.